YouTube, what's going on? Thank you for clicking on the video. Today we're going to be talking about how to get more headshots in Modern Warfare 2. If you're a less experienced player, this video is going to help you improve your overall gameplay by helping you win more gunfights and improve your aim in general. And if, like myself, you're on the mastery camo grind, working towards Orion, then this is going to help you sweep through those polyatomic camo challenges as quickly as possible, because there are a bunch of headshots that you need to get on the road to unlocking that. There are 45 guns in the game and 36 of them require 25 headshots each. The remaining 9 require another 20 headshots, which means you need to hit 1080 total to unlock the Mastery Orion camo. I'm going to talk about a few things in this video, and some of them are going to be very simple for the more experienced players who've clicked on, but not everybody's been playing Call of Duty for 15 years like myself, so I do want to make sure that I cover those foundational bits for people who are newer to the game and the franchise. First thing I'm going to talk about is your settings. I'm going to run through my settings, explain why I have them in certain ways, how it affects your gameplay, and how it's going to affect your aim as well. In your settings, the most important thing is that you have your button layout however feels comfortable for you. I personally run tactical. I've used the right stick for crouch over the last few years, but there's plenty of other layouts as to how you can have your controls. Play around and find what's comfortable for you. Next thing is your aim sensitivity. I personally play on 9.9. I like to match those numbers up so that it doesn't feel any different looking up and down, left and right. I know that the standard is set around about 4.4, and a lot of people generally play on like 6.6. I'd recommend starting on something around about 6, working your way up and down, seeing where you feel comfortable, where you feel like you're most accurate when you're flicking your stick around, when you're trying to snap onto targets. Aim down sight behavior, you want to have this set to hold. This is going to allow you to pop in and out of your ADS using the left trigger as much as you want. Moving over to the advanced tab, we want to have target aim assist on. And aim assist type, you really want to choose between default and black ops. I think you'll find black ops to be a bit more sticky when you're aiming at people. Default is a little bit freer, but still very accurate. Precision and focusing don't actually utilize rotational aim assist, which is one of the huge perks of using a controller to aim, so I wouldn't recommend using either of those. Aim response curve type is how your controller thumbstick responds to the input that you give it. If you think of your aim on a graph where you have input, which is how much force you're putting on the thumbstick to turn your character, and the output as to how your character is responding on screen, you're going to have multiple different ways as to how your character can react based on the force that you give your thumbstick. Standard is representative of a power curve where if you hold the thumbstick, you're going to get faster as you turn. Linear is more responsive to the input, so any small tweak is going to be represented on the screen. And dynamic has a S curve, so as you first push power in, it's going to give you a delicate little turn, and as you continue to put power on the thumbstick, it's going to speed up even beyond your sensitivity max to help you in those snappy gunfights where you're trying to turn around and flick on people. If I were newer at the game, I'd recommend starting on standard and seeing how you feel, maybe change it to dynamic to see how that feels over time. I personally play on dynamic at this point, and it's what a lot of the more experienced Call of Duty players do, as it gives you a more reactive and fluid movement. ADS sensitivity multiplayer is how much your gun slows down when you aim down sights. For me, I have this slightly lower than I have my overall multiplier because I want to be able to move about and look about the map quickly, but I want my aim to be accurate when I snap down the barrel of the gun. ADS sensitivity transition timing, we want this on instant. This means that this ADS multiplier is going to snap in instantly as soon as we start to aim down the barrel. Custom sensitivity per zoom you can play with. I personally don't, but if you play with snipers a lot, for example, you might want to increase your sensitivity there so you can zoom around a lot. The last thing I want to touch on quickly and even demonstrate is dead zone. This can be really useful if you've got an older controller or something that's had a bit more wear, because this is going to help to compensate for that. What your dead zone is the area of your thumbstick that is not considered as basic movement. So if you have your dead zone set to 0, then any movement picked up by the thumbstick is going to be registered on screen. You'll often notice this as a slight drag on your controller when it's been used for a while, where it starts to turn when you're actually not pressing anything. Obviously really not good when you get into gunfights, because when you start to aim against that, you have to overcompensate for that movement that's already there. What you want to do for the dead zone is get the lowest input possible without having any movement when you're not touching the thumbstick. This is going to allow you the freest range of movement where you're super snappy, super fast, and you don't have to fight against your controller and any of the wear and tear that it's taken over the years when you're in your gunfights. My controller's around about a year old. I personally play on 0.08 dead zone for both my left and right thumbstick as the minimum input, and then I have my maximum input set all the way because I want my controller to be able to react as far as I push the thumbstick left and right. You can do the same with your left and right triggers, the rear triggers on the controller if you have any input problems there. One of the things I want to talk about next is centering, and this is the positioning of your gun when you're moving around the map. A lot of people who are less experienced in the game run around the map and they're looking at their feet, right? They're going around, they're trying to look where they're going, and they've got their center dot looking at the floor. That's not ideal. When you're traversing the map, you really want to keep your center point focused on the middle of the screen so that when you get into a gunfight, you're snapping straight in on an enemy. Let's pretend for a minute that I'm going to get into a fight with this vase. At least it's not going to jump charm me. But when I come around the corner, if I'm looking at my feet aiming at the floor, when I go to aim at it, I'm going to have to correct and look up. Whereas if I come around the corner and I'm pre-centered, all I have to do is snap on. This might seem like a tiny difference. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but as you start to get better, go into higher lobbies with higher skilled players, you're going to notice that these millisecond differences make all the difference in these gunfights. And it's absolutely absolutely no difference for headshots either. If you're coming around a corner and you're already centered high up, you're already focused on a player's head, then when you get into that gunfight and you start spraying, you don't need to compensate and start aiming up to actually correct and hit the head. Simple, small, and efficient changes that drastically improve your gameplay. Now, for those that are on the polyatomic grind, I really want to talk about how you're building your gun and how you can build it optimally to your playstyle so that you can get the most out of each game that you're playing. I myself have completed 17 out of the 51 weapons in the game so far, all the assault rifles, all the shotguns, some LMGs, SMGs, and launchers, and I'll be hoping to round those off in the next couple of days. But I've been moving through a really quick pace, moving on to the next gun, usually within one game at a time, and a lot of that is down to how I'm building my weapon to suit my playstyle. I'm going to use my RAL as an example here to show you how I've built it to my strengths and the strengths of the gun, and then build it a slightly different way for people who might be less experienced FPS players and show you how you can build the gun to suit your needs. Now, I know that the RAL is a gun that hits hard, so I've decided not to add a barrel on because generally it's going to add more weight and it's going to slow the gun down. I know that it kicks a lot, so I've added an underbarrel here, but I also know that the gun is very heavy and I like to move around the map and chase kills. So I've adjusted the mag to be a 50 mag, which reduces the amount of bullets in the clip and means that it is more lightweight. I've added a rear grip, which increases sprint to fire speed and ADS speed so that I can get into those gunfights and have a higher chance of winning against submachine guns and assault rifles. And I've added a stock, which again is more lightweight and assists in that sprint to fire, ADS speed, and allows me to take challenges against guns that are more set up for short range engagements. I've also added an optic here, which is just a simple red dot. I'm playing a lot of shoot house, which is again pretty short range gunfights, but it's a better sight for me to look at than the iron sights of the RAL, which can get in the way a little bit, I feel like, whereas the red dot is much cleaner. Now, someone who's less comfortable with Call of Duty gunplay or not super familiar with recoil patterns may want to build this gun to be a bit more stable and a bit slower so that they can hold angles and take gunfights at their own pace rather than chasing kills around the map. In this instance, if you're not expected to be moving around as much, I'd probably remove the mag so that you've got the standard 75 round. I would definitely still keep an underbarrel because it helps control the kick of the gun, but you might go for something that adds a bit more aim idle stability or aim walking stability so that you don't have as much shake when you're moving in those gunfights. You might look to swap your rear grip to something that prioritizes recoil control or flinch resistance, so when you are taking those gunfights, you don't feel the kick when people are shooting you or the kick of the gun in general. And you could even remove the stock and swap it out for like a muzzle, a suppressor, or a flash hider, something that helps reduce that visual recoil and the general muzzle flash that you see in front of the gun when you're taking gunfights. All of this is going to help make a build better for you. You really need to look at the perks that come with each of the attachments and figure out which of these sounds like they're actually promising, and hold Y and hop into the gun range and just test the gun out, see how it feels to you. I know that this shoots pretty straight, but it's not hitting everything. It also feels super slow when I'm ADSing initially. And I can tell that there's a bit more kick at range with this build. This is where your tuning will come in. So you could increase recoil smoothness. This is going to help increase the accuracy at range where I was missing some of my shots. Increase the bullet velocity, which is going to add to that damage at long range as well. We could increase the recoil stabilization or even throw on some ADS speed if we think that it feels too sluggish and slow. And you can really review the tuning across a lot of the attachments to build the gun however feels right to you. Test it in the firing range, test it out in game, and see how you feel in those gunfights. Make tweaks how you need to so that the gun feels set up right for you. Finally, for anybody that is on the Orion grind working on polyatomic headshots, then it's important to remember how you're playing with each weapon class regardless of the map that you're playing on. I myself am playing on shootouts primarily. It's one of the smallest maps that we have and it's filled with people who generally want to get into gunfights and engagements versus some of the other maps which play a little slower. Now, it's important to know that while shootouts is the most efficient map out there at the moment in terms of giving you regular engagements, shipment is launching on December 14th with the launch of Modern Warfare Season 1 Reloaded, and that will immediately become the smallest map in the game, the most hectic map in the game, most action-packed. It's going to be filled with people who are trying to do their camo challenges. This is both good and bad because you'll run into some highly aggressive players who are easy to kill because they're flying around trying to do their own stuff, as well as some people who have waited to do some of the more difficult challenges like launcher double kills, etc. So it's important that you're conscious of the perk package you're running as well so that you don't end up running into a difficult time trying to escape the explosions and stuff like that. That pretty much wraps up the video, guys. There's some really foundational tips in here and some more advanced ones, some settings that Modern Warfare 2 have added in that we haven't had before, as well as some new settings on the guns that you can really play around with to try and get a build that works for you when you're focusing on these accuracy-based challenges that challenge you to play at a certain level of skill when you're trying to unlock these camos. I appreciate everybody checking out the video, and I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who checked out my previous long shot video. There was a lot of love on that. We got a lot of new subscribers, so welcome everybody to the channel. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.